Welcome back to the program. So, first and foremost, I want to say sorry for segment 3 yesterday, that Ariana Grande video. I had no idea what he was going to do with that clip, and I saw it, and that was my real reaction. I was shocked. So, I'm sure many of you were shocked by it as well. Anyway, the show must go on, right? Um, so, I wanted to talk about something completely different. And what I want to talk about today is China, as Trump would say. China is broke. China is feeling pretty bad these days, okay? President Trump has done a number on the Chinese, starting in his first term with the tariffs and things like that, really, really decimated them. But when he took Venezuela, oh man, did it just crush the Chinese, crushing the economy. And we were already starting to see, cracks, if you will, in the economy, in the real estate markets, in manufacturing, in distribution, in so many other things. And now, well, it's pretty bad. Gordon Chang is a China expert, someone that I actually met a long time ago when I was speaking in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Tea Party convention many years ago. And he is the foremost expert, along with maybe Peter Navarro, who's been on the show, on China. Okay? And here is what he has said. China is broke. Rulers are absolutely desperate. And he said, quote, bad things are going to happen. So I said, oh boy, let's take a look at this. Beijing is launching a wave of aggressive revenue-raising measures to fill its empty state coffers. Instead of course, addressing structural problems like communism, right? Instead, the solution is to ruthlessly tax and target the wealthiest of people in China. Okay? Just like a typical liberal would do, right? Typical communist, to pay for all of their things and to make money, they go after the people that make the most money and then tax them to death, which again, eventually what happens with communism, socialism, eventually what? Yeah, you run out of other people's money. So that's what they're trying to do. And in normal cases, when you go and you tax a business owner, an organization, whatever, and you just suck every single bit of money out of them, well, they don't like it, number one. And number two, they go, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm leaving. I am going somewhere else. And China said, oh, no, you're not. This is crazy. They are now holding people and their money in China. On top of auditing ultra-rich offshore trusts, China's mainland authorities have now begun enforcing a 20% personal income tax on Hong Kong residents and insurance policies, triggering immediate panics and sharp sell-offs across the Asian financial markets. Domestically, desperate local bureaus in cities like Shenzhen and others are using big data tracking. Well, hey, they're famous for their social credit scores and tracking every little thing, right? That's what they've been doing for all these years, to force citizens to repay COVID-era unemployment benefits and pandemic allowances, while hitting businesses with corporate-backed taxes dating back decades. So imagine that here in America, if whatever the benefits were for COVID at the time, and you went and you said, oh, we need all that money back, which of course most of that money was laundered anyway. Minnesota, so many other states, right? That's why you don't just hand money out from the government, because it's never free. There's always something attached to it, usually your freedom. But then businesses too. Imagine having a business and I don't know, maybe you made X amount of dollars 15 years ago and you're still doing well now, and they decide that, we want some of that corporate money that you made years ago, and they go after you and your business from decades ago. That's what communism is, okay? That's what the regime is now doing. From raiding private insurance policies to squeezing ordinary workers, Beijing is treating private assets as their own piggy bank. When an authoritarian state squeezes both global investors and its own struggling populace just to stay solvent, economic stability becomes purely an illusion. It gets worse. China's economy was praised as the model for the Western world. This is many, many years ago, and that doesn't make any sense because America's economy has always been the model for the Western world. So I don't understand this. It says opinion and commentary, so maybe that's why. But a few years back, it began to turn sour. President Trump's first administration did an absolute number on China, which is why they wanted him gone. This alone may be why China was so involved in the COVID bioweapon in 2019, 2020. And of course, because he came in the first term and kicked China's teeth down their throat, they said, well, we don't want this guy anymore. And of course, the Democrats wanted to be back in power. So guess what? It was a marriage made in hell. You help us steal the election, China, and we'll give you power over the United States. Everybody wins, Democrats stay in power, and Trump gets squeezed out for 4 years. Okay? Pretty simple. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this one out. But in 2023, the world began to see China's economy faltering. It's been clear for years that the Chinese real estate market has been in trouble. China has a population of 1.4 billion. However, for whatever reason, they built housing for a population that would more reflect about 3 billion people. So imagine that. You have 1.4 billion people, but you build and build and build and build and build, which again, a lot of that was the Belt and Road initiatives, right? The debt trap, diplomacy. Well, many of those countries couldn't pay their debts, and that hurt China as well because China gave them money and things like that. But China also took over their countries as well. Many of the mega developments became empty monuments to Beijing's insatiable desire for growth. For instance, in Shenyang, farmers have taken over a development of empty mansions for cattle grazing. At that time, real estate giant Evergrande began reporting problems, and it finally went bankrupt just a few years ago. Now the value of real estate in China is totally collapsing to its lowest prices in the last 20 years. In response, the government instituted a new law saying that it will not allow some people to leave the country. China just made a new law, and it really banks on one word, may, or maybe, okay? This is insane. Listen to this. Beijing has quietly redrawn the line between citizen and suspect, and it did it with one single word, may. Under China's new regulations on exit and entry administration, effective September 15th, but already being trialed at some points in the country, one term appears again and again, may. Not did, not will, but may. Keep that in mind. If an official, business owner, whatever, decides that you may endanger national security or their interests or industrial security or even technical security, you can be barred from leaving the country. Nowhere does the text define what, quote, may endanger and what it actually means. And it was written that way on purpose. The power to stop you at the border has been pushed all the way down the chain. Provincial governments, the Commerce Ministry, even country-level offices can now decide who can leave and who must stay. As geopolitics scholar Chen Wen puts it, you're no longer flagged for what you did, but for what someone imagines you might do. Now that is full communism, full-blown surveillance state, dystopia type of thing. So the machinery, as they call it, is of a paranoid state, jumping at its own shadows. China has flipped its legal logic from punishing crimes after the fact to preventing exit before anything could happen. State firms are reportedly already tightening travel approvals for staff. Those labeled a, quote, threat abroad can be blocked from leaving for 6 months to even 3 years after they return. Why are they doing this? Pretty simple. Because they know that many of these millionaires and billionaires that are in China don't want to be taxed at 100% or whatever, and worse, don't want their money to be taken from them that they created in their own private businesses. And so they want to leave the country. Well, guess what? If you try to leave and get caught and you're on one of these lists, that's what happens to you. And then the government comes in and takes over your business anyway. This is why communism and totalitarianism and authoritarianism is so dangerous. Because this isn't politics. This is, we are in charge, and if you don't obey, you die. That's how it works. There's no debating or anything like that. And that's why these DSA scumbags must be defeated, because they believe in the Chinese Communist Party. They believe in this type of treatment and ideology, 100%. Okay? Because the regime is so scared and so financially broke and so desperate for money, the economy is sagging, public anger is simmering, Beijing fears its own people voting with their feet. In other words, I don't want to suffer anymore, I'm leaving. And China and the government is saying, try to leave and we'll kill you and we'll take your business. Fear is even more what they say when they come back. Engineers, semiconductors, AI specialists, finance people should read the fine print the next time you think that you want to leave the country. The message to 1.4 billion people is chillingly simple. The door is closed and no one will tell you why and when. If you're planning to leave China, understand the rules before they understand you. So, the good news, I guess, is that China is faltering. China is falling apart financially. It's been happening for a long time. When President Trump took out Venezuela and took over their oil, remember, they were getting 13% of their oil from there. Well, we now run the Straits of Hormuz, basically, so we pretty much control Iran. And so they're not getting shipments of, sanctioned oil for cheap anymore either. And as they have built their economy based on the fact that they were going to continue to get that type of cheap oil and everything else, they don't have gas, they don't have oil, they don't have anything to, really run their economy anymore. And so what are they doing? They're like scavenging all over the place, looking in every crevice, in every little spot, under here, over there. Where can we find money? Oh, well, what about all these people that own businesses? What about all these people that have made money? We need your money now, right? You also have the lie down phenomenon going on in China, which has been going on for years, where the youth have basically just checked out. They're just like, sorry, our futures suck. We can't find a wife because of your one-child policy all these years. So there's nothing but men. And, that's really it. So you're not having a new generation because you killed all the females, right? So we're not really going to do anything. We're just going to lay down and we're just going to relax, and that's it. And so you have not only unemployment out of control, but you have manufacturing, distribution, all the things that were driving the engine of the communist regime, now all of a sudden is pretty much dead, okay? And the real estate market, no one's buying anything, no one's being able to sell anything. So China is in a really, really bad situation. Now, the good news on that is they would be ripe for revolution from the inside. The bad news would be in order to figure out ways to stay afloat as a regime, they can become very, very dangerous, not just to the people of China, but to the rest of the world. And that is the part that I hope this administration understands, number one, and number two, is prepared. Because when you have a wounded animal who's cornered, they're going to do whatever they can to fight back. And they don't care who or what gets damaged as long as they can survive. And that's what makes China so dangerous. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one.